Okay, I can guarantee this video is going to be one of them. Something a bit different, but it's definitely going to divide opinion. I'm asking the question, have the pundits, more to the point, have the Manchester United former players gone too far with their remarks and their opinions on current Manchester United players? You all know what I mean by this, and you all know what I'm talking about, I'm sure. I'm sure that there's some of you that think it's all right, they're in a position and that's their job to do this. But then there is some people that think they're just using and abusing that position to get their own personal opinion across. And has it become too personal? That's the question I'm asking in this video. I'm going to go through some points and some comments for some pundits that we all know very well, and we're going to decide between us whether we think they've gone too far or if they're actually bang on the money and it is too soft at Manchester United right now and they need to be able to take it. So let's get into the show. It's Forever United TV as well, everybody. Don't forget, of course, if you didn't know already, I'm Adam. Something a bit different today, so please do get into the comment section and let me know what you think about all of these remarks from these ex-Manchester United players. Let's get into this and let's be brutally honest with each other. Let's start with Gary Neville's comments. The players are going for a Sunday roast together from the Manchester derby, and that's what the Sunday game looked like at Old Trafford this weekend. You know what? Not far off it. Definitely not far off it with Gary Neville with that there. It was a poor derby. He even said his commentary was boring because that's what the game brought from him. The Old Trafford crowd was dead. Both sets of supporters were just absolutely sucked in by an awful game of football where we expected a lot more. The problem you've got is it's him actually trying to come back on what he said by saying he understands what Amram said in this moment. It's different and we're in a different stage right now. United cannot keep on losing games. They have to find a way and build from the back. It's not like they can all of a sudden just go out and conjure and find a striker, Gary, and something's going to change. He has got what he's got and he hasn't got the money right now. And you know this because you interviewed Sir Jim Radcliffe and you was the one that brought it out of the owner of Man United for actually saying that we haven't got any money to spend. So Ruben cannot do anything else other than what he's got there and what he's working with. So understand that maybe and stop using back in the day it would have never happened like this, because that is completely irrelevant and you lose everything in what you're saying as soon as you come out with them words, and they come out all too often. You're all right waxing lyrical about the way Pep plays his football for the last 5 or 6 years, but all of a sudden, because these managers have had to adapt to a different circumstance and scenario which they're both not used to, it's not right for football and it's boring. Yeah, look, the game was the game. We can say what we want, but don't bring in other things to it, for God's sake, and definitely don't bring in back in the day. My God, Gary, that is the worst one for me. And he hasn't gone in too much, but the others coming up, my God. And obviously, I mean Roy Keane with this one, and this is where I think it's gone over the top. First of all, we got the Roy Keane rant about Bruno Fernandes and what Bruno Fernandes is right now. Sorry, Roy, we don't all play football like you and we don't all need to play football like you. Bruno Fernandes has been the one standout player for Manchester United over the last 5 or 6 years. And yes, he might not have fitted into a Sir Alex Ferguson team alongside you and you wouldn't have liked to play with him. And so you wouldn't have liked to play in this era now, Roy, either. But Bruno, I think, probably would have adapted better to your era than you would have to this era. Look, I love Roy Keane. He's an absolute legend of this football club and he's in my top 5 players. But that was then. And this is the same thing with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And I hate it when we're having to talk about these former greats of the football club because they're in a job around this team right now and commenting on a really tough time for Manchester United. But Roy Keane probably went a little bit too far with Garnacho's comments. And you all heard what he said. And it's like, stick to the football, Roy. Seriously. Like, it's all right having a go at Garnacho for not celebrating. I'm completely with you on it. But having a go at Garnacho and telling him he needs to stay at home, he needs to be a stay-at-home dad because you've got as many kids as you have good performances for Manchester United. Who's he trying to be? Why are you trying to come up with these sort of like quick one-liner comments? You're on Sky Sports. Just talk about the football. It's not good enough. And he probably needs to take a good hard look at himself and understand and wonder why he isn't going to be first team for Ruben Amorim if he keeps putting in performances like this. Can you not just give some real criticism rather than going in and trying to get this click moment? It seems like a lot of these pundits are going into these Sky Sports studios now for me and they're still in the overlap mode. There's 2 different environments altogether and I think there's a crossover right now which is causing problems, I think, for these guys more than anything else, because you cannot comment like that. I mean, yeah, you can give your opinion, But maybe save that for the overlap or something like that, but not on national TV. It makes it look a little bit desperate, to be honest. And Roy Keane is another one of these that is back in the day. You would have never had that in my day. No, we know. And we've been told by every single player. Like, literally, it's just unheard of. Yeah, and we all know and understand what it was like back then. But again, Roy Keane, in these moments, I just think now he's getting a little bit too much. He's getting ahead of himself, I feel. And I understand what he's saying. And I can be brutal as well and completely honest. And I've lost my shit so many times with these players. But this is someone who's being paid at the highest level to comment on a game. And it just seems to me like they're trying to find the entertainment value that they probably would do when the overlap well in the Sky Sports studio. And I think they are over the top in this moment. A lot of what Roy Keane says is absolutely on the money. And I agree with 90% of what he says. But why are we starting to get these little one-liners mixed in there? I mean, come on. And you know why I know that this is of the dinosaur age verdict and opinion, like Gary Neville, like Roy Keane, older Manchester United stars? You only have to listen to what Rio Ferdinand said on his podcast, and how and Rio's obviously one of these who did play with both players, but finished a lot later than these players, was coming into this era now. And I think Rio Ferdinand, and I don't always agree with Rio Ferdinand, I tend to agree with Roy Keane more than Rio Ferdinand, but in this instance, I agree with Rio Ferdinand on it. And he goes in on Gary Neville and Roy Keane, saying that they are looking at it back in their day. Like I just said, you could easily say that 0-0 is unacceptable for Manchester United and Manchester City back in their day because they had that team there. That team is not there now, Rio Ferdinand says. And this team are in a different level. They're at a different phase in their development. And you cannot bring that forward. This is Gary Neville and Roy Keane, who was saying that Manchester United were too open a few weeks ago. And you can't win and you can't lose with them. But Rio Ferdinand actually going in on Neville and Roy Keane on this. So this is why it pricks my ears up and to say and make this video and actually talk about the fact that other players and pundits are picking up on the older school ones at Sky right now. And I do think they're just over-egging it right now. And what Rio Ferdinand said there was definitely bang on the money and more realistic, in my opinion, as to what's actually going on right now. I just think it is a tiny little bit over the top. They need to rein it in and understand that this isn't the 90s Manchester United anymore. They have to learn that. They've been slagging them off for months and years on end, and now all of a sudden, this is unacceptable. Then a really interesting one from Paul Scholes, who was on the overlap, and honestly, talking to the camera, he says that he had a player from Manchester United actually call him up and offer for him to come down and talk about what he said and his remarks about these players playing for United right now. And he wanted to have a face-to-face, come down to Carrington and have a chat with him because he wasn't happy with what Paul Scholes said. And Scholes said, look, gladly, I would take it. And credit to Scholes for actually saying that's not a problem. And he would come down to Carrington. Here's his number. And then he said that the player didn't actually ring him back. Now, he would have been warned off that, the player, by Manchester United staff, because there is an overprotection there. And this is where I defend these strong comments a little bit more, because I've been personally exposed to what Manchester United is like and how protected these players actually are. And this player probably would have wanted to speak to Scholes and have it out with him, but they're not allowed to by Manchester United. And that there is the club's fault. Fully on the club for protecting these players too much. And that might have given... And Paul Scholes said he wouldn't have had a good conversation. It wouldn't have been a happy conversation if he allowed me to actually speak to him. But Paul Scholes is dead right on that. It's like, go and tell them. But you're not allowed to tell them these days. And then you've got that counter to everything that I've just said, where it might be wrong on what Neville and Roy Keane has said, and going back to the old days, Ferdinand having a go at them. But then you've got that soft nature of what is wrong with probably all of society right now. You can't do anything without being pulled and punished for it. And Paul Scholes might have got in big trouble if he went and spoke to this player, because he was going to be brutally honest with him. This is what the social media aspect is doing. And Paul Scholes did this in a social media environment where it's totally different. Roy Keane and Gary Neville and what they're doing, they're, I think, mixed up in both worlds. And I think sometimes the overlap takes over the Sky Sports. That's just how I see it anyway. But look, it's just something I wanted to talk about and see where everybody else is with. Are Roy Keane, Gary Neville, Paul Scholes, all of these ex-United legends too much? Are they saying too much, and is it over the top? Or are they right in what they said? Drop your comments in below and let me know what you think, everybody. And then I will look through all of them comments and see whereabouts it's at. So we'll maybe discuss it later on the live show as well. But thank you for watching, everybody. Put a video on a like. Make sure you hit that subscribe button up on your screen right now as well. And I'll catch you in the live show later on. Cheers for watching, everyone.